Man, where do I start with this? It was crazy. So essentially, my wife's British and I'm Australian. We got our green cards last year, so finally moved over to the States. I've already been doing a headliner thing on cruise ships for a long time, but we were over there doing our work. I used to own a recording studio in Australia many years ago, so then reset one back up, spent 50, 60 grand sort of setting up, already had the gear, but setting up the studio again in LA. Had client roster booked in, and just about to start recording in the studio and doing all the work, and then this pandemic hit. But the weird thing was I was actually on a ship in March the 1st till the 15th. And so it got to about the 8th of March, then we're going, wow, this is getting pretty bad right now. And then next thing you know, like people started shutting down. Australia's going, oh my God, we're going to shut down our borders, all sorts of stuff. So we were meant to get back into San Juan on the 15th of March, but they wouldn't let us into the port. They said no ships coming in. So we're like, oh my God, we're getting caught right now. And then it got to the 17th. They let all the guests off, and because I was on the crew list, they wouldn't let us off the ship. I asked to be fired so I could actually get off, and I was one of 11 people that got off the ship. The crew are still stuck on that ship now.
You know, that's how I'm passing the time after I'm done with work. I just get the guitar and rip it, you know?
Or you can get married. That's the other
yeah,
option.
Nice. Can we give a congratulations for Michael and Kate here, fresh off a marriage? Like, it's pretty amazing.
Thank you. So we got married on Friday, and we considered changing it, but my whole family lives in the U.S. Michael's family's here, and we almost got married last year in the U.S., and then some of our Australian friends couldn't make it, and so this time we were going to get married here. My brother was buying his flight, and my parents, and they were going to come to this wedding, and finally when all this happened, we just said, what else are we doing? Like, we're both full-time musicians, and then our other companies are involved in the music industry, like our hearing protection company for musicians. And although that's still going, it's still a lot less business than we've had this past year. And so we just said, we were going to get married May 1st. Let's just go for it. We already had best friends of ours who were playing music.
This is how to get a gig, guys.
so we had to cancel our musicians who were playing. So Michael played me a beautiful song and walked us down the aisle singing a song on ukulele. It was beautiful. And we played a song that we wrote together for our vows, and then I played a little charango and led us out of our little ceremony. And yeah, it's the only gig we've had. And
that's awesome.
Since March.
I was already working from home like 4 days a week, so I 100% agree with you that it's, as long as you're set up to work at home, it's definitely nicer. But now my 2-year-old's at home too, so that takes a lot of time back.
You can't hand off some of your work to him?
That's true. I hadn't considered that.
See how he does. Maybe he's got a natural talent.
Or, just some new ideas in the world of DSP.
Yeah.
Are we out of ideas here? Do we need new ideas?
You never know. Have you considered smashing an SVF with a block? I mean, that might give you some new ideas.
That could definitely work.
My son routinely builds computers out of magnetiles and works on them. I don't know where he's getting or what he's doing.
Magnetiles almost cost as much as computers.
That's right. Yeah, they're expensive.
My son calls the H9000 his computer, and he'll come into my office and start poking it and say, I'm computering with daddy.
Computering with daddy.
Pretty adorable.
My son calls the H9000 that giant guitar, or no, that giant pedal. That's what he called it. That giant pedal.
And, remote learning is not the easiest for those kind of subjects. And I think, when those schools are back online and they have students, I actually feel like those programs are probably the least affected because they're not 200-person lectures.
True.
We're looking at education from our viewpoint, as music makers, relevant to music programs in schools. But I think actually, in a way, those hands-on engineering programs may be, the least affected in that their class sizes are by nature relatively small. I think at NYU, their largest in-studio class was 22 people. And typically the classes were 12 people or under. I mean, the rooms, as you know, Fran, since you designed them, weren't designed, most of them, to accommodate more than that many students at a time. So
but in tight quarters.
In tight quarters,
in
but I mean,
desk to desk quarters.
I don't see a situation where you teach a hands-on course like an engineering course or a production course, music performance, all the courses that they teach as part of that program. I don't see how, regardless of the size of the room, that those don't take place in close quarters, because the exchange of ideas is about being close and having somebody show you something directly. So I think if that's not possible, obviously they're engaged in, kind of remote education right now, remote learning right now. And I think, the feedback I got when they first started, when I was still in touch with folks in the program, was, that's an uphill battle. Yeah. It's an uphill battle to teach somebody how to do something creative in person, but to do it, across the internet, is certainly difficult. That
you should have some earplugs for non-musicians now, so that everybody sitting at home ripping away, their family members can just.
Yeah. Funny you say that. Just released Peace and Quiet version.
Oh, here we go.
There you go.
You have Peace and Quiet erasers. Erasers.com.au.
Yeah, but they're actually, that's for that purpose. They're not the concert-going musicians playing earplugs. They're actually for whatever else you have in your life. So
loud children.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it is a struggle for some people these days, like getting peace at home. People who aren't used to the whole family being, especially the children and dogs and everything else, like in the house at as many hours as they currently are. That's an adjustment for a lot of people.
Well, not until the live business figures out how to come back will we be grappling with how to record an orchestra, I fear. I don't know.
Dude, how about plexiglass around music stands? Like they do in bodegas.
We all know how good plexiglass sounds when you get it real close to microphones on multiple planes.
Oh yeah, that'll be great.
Especially like a nice parabolic. That would
exactly.
You say a parabolic?
I must admit, there's one thing I've been noticing that Germany has done, which I hope that we all get creative like this. And they've actually, I don't know whether you guys have seen it, but they're doing drive-in concerts. And
I saw an article about that.
And they're actually, look, hey, you've got to work with something, don't you? But there's there's 1,000 cars sitting there. Apparently, you tune your radio station, your radio into the actual frequency, and then you can listen to it in your own car stereo and watch a concert. I'm like, look, if that's what it's got to be, it's better than nothing, I think, for everyone. I don't know.
The only problem is the cars would be louder than the gig.
Yeah.
Come to our gigs anyway.
Concert thing. Drive-ins are all the rage now. Yeah.
That's the best idea.
Came up yesterday. See, but I'm dubious about how impactful can it sound coming from an FM radio. I mean, FM radio is pretty good. But one of the best things for me, and I'm an engineer. I wear earplugs if I go into a bar. So the best thing about being at live music for me is that I get to feel the vibration of the low end, right? You get to actually experience volume in a physical way, and that is gone if you're at a drive-in. And it can still be cool. It can still be live music, but it's
why can't there be big PAs at a live drive-in concert though? Why can't the sound system be the same?
Well, yeah, you had to open your cars and people could sneeze and there'd be crosswinds. And
I'd like to think by the time we're ready to do this, music fans will just be so psyched to go watch a show that everyone will go and it'll be great. That's what I try to think. But we don't know. It's weird. Part of being in a gig is that you're smashed into an audience and there's thousands of people and it's sweaty. And, like Leon was saying, it's like that's part of the thing. Imagine how weird a gig's going to be with everyone 6 feet apart.
Oh, my God.
If you've ever been to Perth, that's kind of what gigs in Perth are like anyway. So
right, yeah.
Maybe we're ahead of the curve.
The opportunity here is to find the things that motivate us without an external pressure in a certain way. I think it's really easy, especially in the freelance life, to sort of be dragged along by what other people tell you should be doing tomorrow. And it's, in some ways, interesting to sort of say, well, what is the thing I want to do tomorrow? That, to try to take it as a positive rather
That's
than
the question that keeps coming up, I feel like, yeah. And that's been good to, take that time.
Yeah.
But thanks again for having me. And nice to see everyone and Steve.
Yeah, it was nice.
What do you mean, everyone and Steve?
Right at the very end, you had to throw shade.
So for me, it's always like, oh, cool. I'm in a new city. What? I'll go to the local pawn store or the local guitar center or something, and a Boss distortion pedal, $20. I don't need that, but it's $20. So that's just been me. Like, oh, where did I get this again? Oh yeah, what's the price tag on the back say? $20. It's like just like so many things like that. So it's it's been it's inspiring. But I realize I probably play like 3 of these guitars, and I have 20 delay pedals, but the H9 does all of that. Why do I have so many of these? It's a good time to downsize.
And also to touch on something I think Roy said, that a lot of times I think we'll pick. I remember doing something where I had been recording the whole time using an AMS delay.
Right.
We came back to the record plant to mix, and they didn't have AMSs. We had Publisons and Eventides and other things, and immediately feeling like, oh, those guitars aren't sitting in the same place, that the character of the box is part of what makes it sit in your record a certain way. And what's really brilliant about these Eventide plugins is they have that character. They sit in the place that you expect an Eventide effect to sit. It's not just a generic digital plugin.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, Bill, for sure.
Do you have a 910?
I do.
Yeah.
And also the 910 plugin is pretty great.
Really great.
Yeah.
That's another one where the character is really obviously great.
And that's like a thing that you could do with the H910, right? Because it was a pitch shifted delay. So every time that it would feed back into itself, it was going up and up and up.
It's on a lot of records like that, yeah.
Yep.
Some really obvious.
Do you know any off the top of your head that you'd say? Like,
David Bowie, the snare sound. That's the famous one, right?
AC/DC.
Well, exactly. The AC/DC, the Mutt Lang Forever would set a harmonizer at 87 or so and delay, and then it would go every time it hit the snare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll say I've been in this business since I graduated college, so it's like, I don't want to think about it, 18 years or something like that. And it's a fun business to work in because of the topic, but it's even better because of the people. Almost everyone I've met at any company has been great to hang out with. So
it's a fun community, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And a lot of
that it might be competitive, but it's so not competitive. Like it couldn't be further from competitive.
Yeah. I think it's everyone who's doing this wants to do it, right? Like, or is really interested in it, because otherwise we'd just go work on something that pays well. But it's so you get good people.
When something like this comes out, are you listening to that and saying like, oh, hey, great, that's that sound that I know, and I'm going to use it for TV in this way so that when the viewers are watching, they associate it with that? Or are you also looking for like new sounds and new ways to use these things?
I would say no. It's just, it makes it ferocious, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
Just nasty. It makes it bigger and meaner and more angry. And for this particular guitar sound, that's what I wanted, not for the high string, but it's just the simplicity of this plugin to make something bigger is incredible. And well designed, guys, well designed.
I made a preset that sort of approximates the Time After Time guitar also.
Oh, yeah.
Which was actually done with a Publison. Tony told me it's okay to say that.
Is that what that
was? but it's very much the same idea of small, slightly drifting pitch shifts and short delays, instead making a mono guitar stereo. So I mean, it comes very, very close to that.
It's amazing, because I came from the H3000 and stuff, and That thing was a pain in the ass to use.
Yeah, I mean,
-9 + 9, get it out of my life. But this thing, I'm tweaking, right? Mikey and I were talking about how we tweaked this thing already. It's like, wow, it's really useful.
Yeah, and like you were saying, just like how easy to use it is, because I worked in a studio that had an H3000 for years, and I almost never touched it. Well, it probably wasn't plugged in, but
yeah. This is the clubhouse.
Don't be afraid of the H3000.
A bunch of us worked at the clubhouse in Rhinebeck, and Paul's joke was it worked yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like, I almost never used that there, and then I got the plug-in version of it, and I took a little bit of time to dive a little bit deeper, but it was still like, man, this thing is so deep. But like with this one, just being able to dial in an awesome sound in 20 seconds is pretty incredible.
I feel like also that just that like classic like -5, become the monster, put it on your voice, chopped and screwed, pitch it up 5. I feel like you could just start flipping things, and like you say, if you commit to the audio, just print those down and grab a new track and like keep flowing with stacks and up and down. And the panning on the A/B I've been having fun with, because I think you can really, depends on how you swirl with it, but to go, that was, I feel like, something you don't see much, is the A and the B to pan versus a lot of other effects. That was, I think, new for me.
That's true.
That was new for me too. Well, I was using it, I put it on an instrument, a sort of, dreamy, druggy sort of clean guitar. And I like flanges a lot, and I like to put subtle ones on. So I set it totally wet and put a very short or no delay, just a little bit of pitch shift, and made it mono again. But I had to go find a plugin to do that. But it was a cool sounding flange, happy accident. But I'm always looking for new ways to have either subtle or interesting sounding, moving things like that.
Yeah, exactly. To me, contrary to your question, Colin, I guess to me so far the beauty of this has been that it just makes things sound more interesting or sit better without it drawing attention to itself so much. Although I can see why the instinct is to immediately go to something extreme with it, but you don't have to. And I guess most of the work I do is not looking for it to sort of jump out at you like that. But I think it's kind of great that it doesn't have to.
Sure.
That's a good point, because I muted those micro pitches. I had 2 of them, and I muted them, and they were like, 15% different. And
yeah,
and it was perfect. It's just what I wanted. I didn't really want you to hear it, but if you take it out, you'll hear it.
Yeah.
The super short delay settings are really cool. Like the really ringy, flangey stuff is where, for me, especially with the tone control, it gets really fun.
Yeah.
Get some almost like Aphex Twin, like super ringy, delay, buzzy, modulating stuff.
Do you use the feedback when you do that?
Oh yeah, big time. And that's what's really cool with the ribbon controllers. If you're using the ribbon controller on the feedback and the tone, you can get these cool ringing, sweepy things that are, I mean, I just think of Aphex when I hear that stuff.
Yeah. You guys use the tone control?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, I've been loving that.
That's one of my favorite parts of it, because I can darken the guitars right away just with a tone. And thank you for putting that in, by the way.
Yeah.
Like earlier today, I was messing around with MicroPitch on a synth part. It was like a plucky synth thing. And yeah, it had like, I don't know, like a 1 millisecond delay or something, and just a tiny bit of pitch shift, and then crank the feedback up to like 100. And it was like doing crazy, like
dive effects.
Yeah, it was like, it was making it a completely different synth part. Right. So that sort of like became the part just by cranking a couple of knobs. Making a whole new sound that wasn't there before.
I was totally taken by surprise by the delay side of things. Because I was totally just expecting to use my like micro pitch shift H3000 settings. How far am I going to go? How wide is it going to be? How delayed is it? And then just, that's pretty much the way I think about micro pitch 90% of the time. Using this, I totally love the sound of the delays. I made a bunch of presets that were just really fun, with like some really dark sort of tape slappy things with some modulations. It can be, you can go really crazy with it, but the thing I really liked about it was that it could be really useful but colorful at the same time. And it just seemed like I was like, oh, I'll totally use this as a delay plugin rather than just a pitch shifting plugin.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And anything that has unnoticeable character makes you want to use it. You know what I mean? It just
Totally.
it's not just like, oh, I want a delay. It's like, I want that sound, the sound of that thing.
And at the time that I did this, I think I was junior DSP engineer, and a buddy of mine, Dan, had started it, and he said, "Hey, make this more like the H3000." So I keep using the word forensics. No, it's not dead. People still use it. It was like detective work. This one, as opposed to some of the other algorithms that I put like a lot more of like personalization into. This was like, all right, make it like that classic H3000 micro shift thing. And that actually has delays in it. You don't know it because you have to expose the expert parameters.
You have to be the expert.
Yeah. And the other thing that is confusing is that the manual was wrong, and it misled everyone because the H3000 manual had block diagrams in it that showed you the algorithm. And so originally we looked at the block diagram. Everyone said this is the H3000 micro shift algorithm or whatever. And we looked at the block diagram. We made an algorithm that looked like the block diagram. And we could never get it to sound the same until I realized that when I dug in those expert parameters, that the manual was telling us that famous preset was the wrong algorithm.
Wow.
I don't know if that was on purpose.
Part of the reason people get nostalgic, I think, is that, there was a lot of how can I abuse something or use it in a way that it was not intended and come up with something new rather than just like, oh, I want this effect, here's the button that gets me it. But that's also what's great about something like these plugins, that you can just sort of throw it on and play around with it and see what happens, as opposed to walking in with a preconception of what you're trying to get. That I know, just playing around with it for 3 or 4 days, I found stuff that I would not have gone in looking for in a good way. That makes sense to anybody?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like a discovery thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice, to have all the Eventide that in the back of your mind, like to come up in 1 second. Like now we have 20 of them that we can just throw on and have the best sounds ever.
And we can have 20 of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
all across the board, right?
Yeah, we have a million H3000s, each one of us.
It's like, why spend, how much money on a Fairchild when you can spend a couple $100 for 50 of them?
Or 50, at least 50 pictures of them.
Yeah.
I have the space reverb pedal, and I always love the black hole setting in that.
Yeah.
And I'd pretty much just use it on guitar because, it's a guitar pedal. That's just, what you think of. But then, like, when the black hole plugin came out, all of a sudden I'm putting that on piano and vocal and, everything. So just having it as a different form factor kind of makes you think about it differently.
Totally.
And it's incredibly easy to use because I used it inside the H9 a lot, but now I use it on bass. I use it on all kinds of stuff. The Crush Station is awesome.
Crush Station is
the Crush
awesome.
Station.
Love the Crush Station.
That's a good point. A lot of you guys are using the H9 pedal already, right? Like,
I got a couple.
Same.
Are you finding that you're using some of these effects that were ported from the H9 differently since?
Yeah, because you can access them easier.
Right.
So I have more access to the Crush Station. Putting it on bass is just ridiculous, man. I was doing it today.
Yeah, I made that because I'm a bass player, and I just got sick of
I
got sick of distortions without a mix knob. I was like, I need a mix knob.
Yeah.
They should all have a mix knob.
It's funny, about a half hour ago, or just before we went on, Mikey and I were on the phone with each other, he was walking me through the pitch shifting aspects of Crush Station.
Yeah, there's an octave up and down.
That feature. The octave down in that is like absolutely killer.
I think it's probably the same module that's in MicroPitch. We call them DSP modules. We reuse code across them. So it's probably the same one, I would imagine. Yeah.
It's pretty nasty.
Well, when you do pitch shifting before distortion, there was like an internal debate of where we should put that pitch shifter in the algorithm, and I was like, no, we're gonna crush it in. We got to crush it. So I was like, it's got to be before.
Agreed. Yeah,
I hear compression. I clearly hear compression.
That's in the sustain knob.
I know, and it's nasty cool.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It was one of those make a compressor playable. How do you like all those old guitar compressor pedals that had one knob and you just was like compression.
The MXR.
Yeah, like the MXR, that orange crush thing. I think is right. That type of thing. I was like, well, how do I make a one knob compressor? And then I realized, it's nice to be able to do it before or after distortion because you get it does different things to the harmonics. So
good job.
Yeah, that was an interesting one to try to dial in too.
I think
the coders, man, the real MVPs, baby. You guys are insane.
Amen. I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about the nurses and doctors, man. This is
keep it on, man.
Out.
Absolutely. And Bill's son works at a hospital. He's in charge of the ER or something.
He runs an emergency department at NYU Brooklyn. Yeah.
Thanks to your son, man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't know where I went wrong, but.
We're getting several questions about from EEs here. What are some good ways to get better with DSP for audio? People graduating with electrical engineering degrees. Took several DSP courses, but haven't done much work outside of MATLAB. What's your suggestion for an EE student who wants to work in the audio industry as a DSP engineer? Should we tell them to go work in finance?
Masters with Stefan.
Yeah, I was gonna like sell my ass here. Like, come to the masters.
Yeah, go to Edinburgh, right?
I would go to Edinburgh.
Yeah,
I did EE. Yeah, I'm an EE graduate.
Just wait a year, like not this year, but
not this year.
It's actually, that's an interesting question. I get a lot. I try to do work with students sometimes, and they are almost always good programmers who are doing some schooling for like audio and that, but they haven't really done DSP classes or signal and systems classes because they didn't do it in electrical engineering, or they're doing some amount of DSP and they want to know more about analog electronics because they didn't do a double E. And I honestly have nothing. I don't know what to tell them because the way I learned analog electronics was 4 semesters of circuits 1, circuits 2, electronics 1, electronics 2, or or DSP with signals and systems 1, signals and systems 2 in a DSP class. And it's like, I could tell them to go buy Oppenheim and Schaefer, and that's usually what I do, but there's probably a better way for someone who wants to learn specifically analog electronics and DSP for analog electronics for audio. Does anyone have any ideas?
Man, it feels like a dying art almost in a way, like fewer and fewer of our students coming in from undergrad, know circuits, so they learned it on the fly, but it's I'm worried about it actually, disappearing a little bit.
I know pretty good.
People are doing such high level stuff these days that they don't engage with what's an inductor or something like that,
Yeah,
so,
barely anyone even makes inductors anymore, right?
Yeah, sure. And you don't really, I guess, need to know what they are, but it's so useful to understand them just for doing any kind of programming or DSP, So.
I heard an interesting comment at AAS. It was I think the guy from Studio Devil said, anyone who actually really understands a transformer died 50 years ago.
I guess. I actually have a recommendation. I have a very good source of knowledge for music electronics. Actually, the way I learned the second time, because I did EE for my undergrad, but I feel like I really learned electronics much later during my master's when I worked on the Moog filter with Stefan. I found a series of lectures from a professor who is, I think, is it Georgia Tech? Aaron Lanterman. I'm sure some of you have heard of him.
Yeah, that's Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, right? He's Aaron Lanterman. He has a YouTube channel. I think he just changed his name on YouTube to Lantertronics, I believe. He used to be Above Nyquist, which is an alias. It's great, very funny. But he just changed it. I follow him on Twitter as well, and he just announced a new name for his channel. His Lantertronics. I don't know. Maybe we can post this somewhere. I can probably type this on the Facebook group, Facebook feed. But if you browse his YouTube channel and then maybe some forums, you can find links to his lectures, and they're very, very good. He covers RC filters to begin with from a very good point of view, very useful for music DSP. Then he moves on to distortion circuits. He does a bit of filter modeling, like DSP stuff. it's a very complete course. He's been running it for, I would say, 15 years now, and it's very good. I can type that. Aaron Lanterman. He's my go-to.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure Kurt likes his lectures too, right?
Oh, they're nice.
Very good stuff.
There's another one along those lines as well, and that's Electronotes, if you can get hold of them.
Electronotes.
Yeah, that's the classic.
That's good. I mean, Aaron Lanterman bases a lot of the lectures on Electronotes, so you should check both.
It's good resources.